Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard on this Thursday morning here as we get ready for the first weekend of August. Wow.
That went by quickly.
Yeah, I know.
And Monday's going to be the 7th already. Like, it's just crazy how fast things move.
Oh, I am telling you. School is starting today for Chatham County here in Savannah. And they say some of the bus drivers are warning and telling parents not to be apprehensive. They work with the kids as much as possible, especially the younger kids who sometimes will get on the wrong bus. So they're going to try to get that all figured out. And that means that traffic cams in these school zones are going to be back in operation. And I got 3 tickets last year to the tune of $150 a piece as saying I was speeding in a school zone. Well, if you want to consider going the speed limit during the school hours, yeah, that's one thing. I was not, but the lights weren't flashing. The kids weren't going to class or coming out of class. It was like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, those traffic cameras are something that I hear quite frequently about from people that are upset about them.
Yeah.
I do just want to mention, in Walker County, they found lead in the water of the schools there. Yes. And let's see. The state issues free testing kits for every school, and only 119 out of 5,196 schools and daycares have tested their water. Our school starts today. I wonder if in Chatham County we've tested the water, because I do think that this is really concerning. I have a big thing about what they're putting in our water and why, but if there's lead in the water, and I'm sorry, only 119 out of over 5,000 schools have tested, that's insane.
Yeah. So what's the deal? Who's supposed to be responsible for doing that?
I would think
the principal. I don't know. The guidance counselor.
They pay enough people in administration. Someone should be in charge of that.
Well, they sure do. Yeah, absolutely. Get up from behind the desk and go test the water, for God's sake.
Yeah, so just a question I'm going to have for the school board next week. If you have the ability to go, it's on Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, because it's very convenient.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure is. Speaking of convenient, the Board of Elections in the state had their convenient 9 o'clock Tuesday meeting.
Yes.
Day before yesterday.
They just like to make it really easy for the public to go. So 9 a.m. is on a Tuesday is the time that they do their meetings. They had over 100 people there. It was standing room only. Pretty powerful, because people are upset.
Fed up.
Well, and I think when you start to go to these meetings, Bill, we assume that our elected officials are qualified to do the job they're elected to do.
And have our interest at heart.
Yes. And when you go to these meetings, you realize...
That's what they told us during the campaign.
Yeah. Well, when you go to these meetings, you realize that they're probably far less educated on the topic than you are. And that's scary to me. But when people are... conservatives do read, Republicans read. So we're pretty educated, especially on things we're passionate about. And the election integrity here, there's a huge movement. We have several groups that are working on it in different aspects and different elements. And, Kim Brooks, she has been working diligently on the voter rolls here. And she's run into a lot of frustration because they have found all of these phantom voters. And she spoke at the Board of Elections on Tuesday, and this is what she had to say.
Kim Brooks, DeKalb County. I'm a data expert on Secretary of State voter rolls. I want to talk about today, everyone needs to hear, we've always heard about phantom voters, and we have about 30% phantom voters on our voter rolls across the state. That equals about 2.2 million phantom voters, so if you wonder where the cheat comes from, it's from that bucket. Let's talk about a few that's happened in the last 3 months. Mr. Edwards is a Vietnam vet that died in 2019. He served our country for 20 years with the Air Force. He has a beautiful family, and he has been resurrected to life as an active voter in Atkinson County. We've talked to his stepson. They're not real happy about it. Let's talk about Miss Dixon. She's lived in Pierce for decades, owns her home, and they started messing with her voter roll. We went and spoke with her son that runs the tractor company in town. He's not happy at all because Miss Dixon doesn't even communicate with her son because she's advanced Alzheimer's, yet she voted in November of 2022, which he assures us she did not do and was incapable of. Let's talk about Nishandra. She's a lovely gal in the projects in Statesboro and Bullock County. A duplicate ID should never be reinstated on the voter rolls, but they are being reinstated. And Nishandra is an innocent person being set up for a felony for double voting in Georgia. Her ID, her duplicate that was canceled, was reestablished in Gwinnett County. We've canvassed Gwinnett County at the apartment. Nishandra doesn't live there. And we finally spoke with Nishandra in Statesboro. We went to great lengths to meet to her to let her know that her ID has been stolen. That's another phantom voter. Now let's talk about Norberto. He was brought back in Gwinnett County at something canceled voter street. Okay. The criminals are not being very creative here. Then he was moved to DeKalb County to an apartment. We knocked on that door. We talked to the lady that lives in that apartment. Norberto doesn't live there because Norberto is currently sitting in jail in Gwinnett County. He may be there for a very good reason, but he is an innocent citizen that's getting his ID stolen.
All right,
this is happening thousands across the state.
Can you wrap up, please?
Okay. Thank you. And we don't believe the gaslighting from this board. God bless America.
Is she going to stay in the middle of the road, or is she going to speak her mind?
Yeah, I think there were several people that were upset. They also talked a lot about a woman. So one of the cases that they dismissed was a woman that had Alzheimer's that they just dismissed the case. They didn't even look at the fact that she still voted. And people were very upset because they also had parents that had Alzheimer's that they're like, if this shouldn't be happening to our parents. Like, this is ridiculous. And the fact that you guys just dismissed it, they're very upset with this board.
Yeah.
They have nothing but non-nice things to say.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it. Non-nice, yes.
Yes, and here's the thing: there's a lot of people that are passionate, and for them to get over 100 people there on a Tuesday morning from all over the state, it wasn't just people from Atlanta or Cobb County, there were people from Grady County there, all over the state, and big commitment. And we're going to try and have someone on the show next week to kind of talk about more about this movement and what's going on in Georgia, because I think people are waking up to the fact that they've been lied to. And once you start investigating what's going on with our elections, there's a lot of questions. And I will tell you, I'm a little disappointed in our Board of Elections here. They are not updating their website. There are people that won their elections in 2022 that still have not been listed on the website as being in those seats. And I do think I did call over to the Board of Registrar's office to see when this special election, what the hours were going to be for early voting. Keep in mind, early voting for a September 19th special election is going to be 21 days out. So that is going to start on August 28th for that election.
Wow. That's ridiculous.
It's crazy. So
we're going to have a special election, and then there's going to be another one just 2 months later.
Yes, and
less than 2 months later.
Yes, and the reason for that is that they do have to have a special election within 90 days of someone resigning their seat. And so, unfortunately, Gator Rivers did pass away, and that's why they have to have this special election.
Yeah, but as strange as it may seem, Gator may be voting Democrat this coming November.
You got to watch those voter rolls.
Yeah, you really do.
They switched over to a new system, and it has created a bigger mess than they had before, which was still a mess. But nonetheless, there's a lot of issues that they're not being very transparent about, and I think that that's a huge problem.
This is why you need to get involved, and this is how this all has come about, is because most people do the assumption that you were talking about, Brittany, is that they're saying, we elected these people. They told us they were going to do this, that, and the other when they were running. I presume that they know what they're talking about. They seem sincere. Okay, you got my vote, and they just, you go about your business. And then this happens.
Yep. Well, I think that it's our job as the people to hold our elected officials accountable.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Most of the people on this board are actually appointed by Governor Kemp, from what I understand. So, but, Steve Stanton says, I likey, and this is happening everywhere, says Mary Hybreeder. And Steve also says, if voter fraud hurts the Democrats, you can talk about it. But of course, if it's a Republican, you definitely can't.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Nothing gets you in trouble these days like the truth.
Which is weird because we are in a Republican state.
Oh, yeah.
I don't understand what is going on.
I don't either.
And here's my stance on it, Bill. whether there was or wasn't any fraud, it doesn't matter because people do not have faith in the elections, and that's where the problem lies. And it's your job as elected officials to ensure that whatever needs to happen to make sure that people feel comfortable about the voting methods that we're using, that is your responsibility to the people.
Yeah, your biggest obligation as a citizen of this country is to vote and to do an educated, well-educated vote. So, and this is one of the reasons they probably don't teach civics much in schools anymore. It's just pathetic.
Well, I love Vivek's idea of making everyone take a civics test. He talked about it being, within 6 months of your 18th birthday, you would have to take a civics test, or you would have to do some sort of service, like being an EMT or going into the military or something like that. But I actually think to graduate from high school, you should be able to pass the same test that we make people trying to become American citizens take. Exactly. I think we should have to pass that.
Like they take the oath, they have to have answered certain questions about the United States, and there's no reason why our high school students shouldn't be able to do the same thing. Meanwhile, speaking of Vivek,
yes,
he was in Tennessee yesterday, in Nashville, making some interesting comments.
Well, and the thing about Vivek is that people didn't see him coming, and so now they're like, "Wait a minute, who is this guy?" And he actually said that he doesn't believe the 9/11 Commission report.
No, I don't either.
So that's causing a lot of friction, and the left is having a field day with that. If you, I know none of you watch CNN, but if you did, that's what they're talking about. Is basically he's a right-wing lunatic. So, Vivek, he looks at things in a different way, and I do think that Vivek is talking about the things he wants to talk about. He's not talking about all of the distractions. I don't hear him talking about aliens. I don't hear him talking about any of that stuff. He's talking about the indictment of Donald Trump. And yesterday he was in Nashville, and he's talking about why that manifesto has not been released.
Yeah, from that school shooting a few months back.
I'm here as a father and as an American. We can't fix the past, but we can prevent tragedies in the future. And the only way to do it is to learn from those mistakes of the past. When an airplane crashes, we recover the black box for a reason. We never want to make that same mistake twice. We have a tradition in this country as law enforcement to do the same thing when there's a mass shooting. It is a long-standing tradition of law enforcement in the United States of America to, when it is recovered, release the manifesto of the shooter. We have to learn from tragedy to prevent it in the future. The manifesto of the killer was made public in each of the following instances: Allen, Texas; Buffalo, New York; Charleston, South Carolina; Isla Vista, California; Monterey Park, California; Poway, California, in all cases within 48 hours of the tragedy. The public demanded the same happen here in Nashville immediately after the tragedy in March. In fact, the National Police Association has since sued city officials and county officials demanding the same. It turned out that on April 27th, Governor Bill Lee, the governor of this state, pledged to release that manifesto. Yet today we're sitting here in August with nothing other than stonewalled silence from our government. That is wrong. That does not build public trust. That erodes public trust. I'm here today to make a demand of the governor of Tennessee, to make a demand of the Nashville Police Department, to make a demand of the FBI. Release the manifesto. Speak the truth. The hard times are the times where we must most openly speak that truth. It is hardest to speak the truth under difficult circumstances, but that is when we require it the most. I understand that there are legitimate concerns, that we do not want details released that will motivate copycats. I don't want that. The fellow Americans who earnestly have called for the release of this manifesto, they don't want that either. And I want to go on record and say it would be perfectly reasonable for the police to redact any sections of this manifesto that lay out specific plans, that lay out specific premeditated plots on details of execution that could be copied by another individual. But what we do need to know is this killer's motives, this killer's psychological state of mind. The truth of the matter is that we have a mental health epidemic in this country that is driving a wave of violence around this country, and we're going to have to deeply understand it if we are to address it.
Yep. Wonder why they're not releasing this one.
I don't know. There's something more to it because they were gung-ho about releasing it, and then they backed way off as soon as the Capitol was breached by a bunch of trans activists.
Hey, amazing. I wonder why.
Well, and then the congressman there, the state congressman, was also reinstated after they were kicked out. So interesting.
Things that make you go,
Yeah.
All right. Well, what to do about investments? We'll be talking with Travis Chance coming up here from CFG Wealth Management and his weekly little dose of what you could do in the market. That's next.
RK Shows has a reputation for bringing you the highest quality gun shows and hunting supply events. With over 25 years of excellence in the making, RK Shows is continually increasing in size and quality. Today, the shows have become one of the largest gun and knife shows in the U.S.
I turn 50 years old next week, and I've been coming to gun shows up here since I was 17. And I've seen over the years how they've just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now there seems to be a lot more for everybody.
RK shows aren't just about a gun show. They're a celebration of law-abiding citizens and their freedom. It's a family tradition. It's a
She trains at 6 a.m. every morning. She spent years working to shave off seconds. She's the captain of her school's team. He's just a mid-pack finisher. But not today. Unfortunately, this competition was over before it even began.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America. Glad to have you aboard. Glad to have our good buddy Travis Chance from CFC Wealth Management on board to tell us about what's going on stock market wise and what we can do to help build our wealth as we get older, and we don't run out of money before we run out of breath, as Travis loves to say. So, what's going on?
Absolutely, Bill. So I know most of your podcast subscribers are probably out there wondering what in the French toast is going on with the downgrade. I know that we thought we were past this, and it's like, this is the sequel we didn't want to see, but this is the danger of having a government that really does not, in my opinion, have the people's best interest at heart. The lack of willingness to come to the table, the political pageantry, if you will, We're well past the debt ceiling debacle back in May, but recently, actually, as of this week, Fitch has actually downgraded the government from a triple A to a double A rating. So, still well within investment grade. That's not really the key concern. It's just basically the ratings agencies now are starting to take note, saying, "Hey, unless you guys get your act together and start to work together and show that you can really give confidence that you can pay your obligations, we're gonna take you down a notch." And I hope this is a wake up call for the politicians. We've got an election coming up. Maybe it'll be a wake up call for us as we go to the polls. But it just goes to show you that we try to keep politics out of our pocketbook as much as we can, because if you usually vote blue or red, you're going to miss some green. But this is one of those situations where politics is definitely causing some havoc right now in the market. So I don't think it'll be long lived, though. I'll be honest with you. This is not the S&P level nuclear option downgrade back from 2011. But I do think this is a slap in the face to us. Say wake up, and it is hopefully a slap in the face the politicians will take note of as well.
They're not good at on the uptake on wake up calls for some reason. Yeah, they like to get up and have their favorite noonday meal, breakfast.
Yeah. But it's a tough life having a work schedule that goes from 12 to 2 and then from 4 to 5.
Yeah, boy, that's the truth. Now, credit, I think a lot of people sit there and say, okay, our credit rating was downgraded from AAA to AA. What does that mean for me?
Right now, what you're gonna and I'll just make the commentary because it is different this time. I know there's always the expression it's kind of cliche. This time it's different. Well, this time it really is different because it's not I don't think it's going to turn into market calamity. We saw the market was down 17% in 2011 whenever they were toying around with this. This is not going to be that. I think what this is going to mean is we're going to see obviously yields are going to fluctuate. I think the markets themselves are going to have some gyrations. We're already seeing this morning the market's kind of selling off a little bit, but it's also after the Dow's been up 16 of the last 17 days. So it's not. I don't think long term it's going to be this huge negative black cloud hanging over us in perpetuity. But it is a wake up call that basically we need to be aware that just because we're buying treasuries, they're backed by the U.S. government, strongest institution in the world, in my opinion. But we need to be aware of what we're purchasing. As far as our portfolios are concerned, I think the bad part about that is if you see yields shoot up even further, you're going to see some fixed income get impacted negatively with principal. You can see, your 401k is going to bounce up and down. So it's not going to be a fun ride, but I think it's going to be a short ride. But if nothing else, the current administration, the DOJ will just indict somebody, and maybe we'll just indict everybody for everything except a certain family. Maybe, I don't know.
Good idea. When do we expect?
I'm sorry. I'm a little punchy on some of this stuff this morning because I'm getting to my wits end. It's just like, oh my God, are you gonna indict this guy for everything he's ever done ever in his life?
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly what everybody else is doing. I'm sorry. I'm a little bitter. I'm sorry.
Well, I can understand that. As a matter of fact, I'm thinking that they're gonna get him for the kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby here shortly. Nevertheless.
Yep.
It's unbelievable. What are your clients? What's the clientele saying right now? What are their worries and what are they happy about?
Well, a lot of our clients, and hopefully all those that can hear the sound of my voice right now are really happy because we did make the call back at the end of last year, beginning of this year, that we really had two potential outcomes, and we wanted to plan for both. And one was if we were to go into recession, we were a little more defensive, or had some additional defensive positions in our portfolios. going forward, we did have some good growth opportunities, and I think a lot of our clients are starting to realize that maybe the black cloud that was hanging over last year, as we talked about, cannot last forever. Typical bear markets last about 11 months. We were in that one just over 15, and we're starting to see the market move higher. Now, it's not saying we're going to see a 30%, and I'm talking S&P now, not my performance.
Mm-hmm.
We don't talk performance, obviously. The SEC is definitely not fond of that. But S&P this year, we're not going to see 30% from here, but I do think we have reason to be optimistic. I don't think we're going to hit recession. I think, if you remember, before Jean-Pierre came on board and whenever it was, let's circle back, all she kept saying was, this is not really a recession, even though it's 2 quarters of negative growth. Yes, it was. I think that was our recession. We went through it, and this is the coming out party. So I do feel like there's reason to be optimistic. The one thing that a lot of our clients are getting a little bit concerned about, we'll go back to this, is taxes, because we know the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act expires in 2025. Will the Democrats, if they take office, just giving you the facts, if the party that wants tax increases sees a crack in the ability to increase even further, are they going to take it? If so, how's that going to affect your pocketbook? How's that going to affect retirees and their portfolio and their spending ability? I think these are some of the things that's starting to now become kind of a reality. They can see the light at the end of the tunnel coming, and they're wondering, what's that going to bring? So, these are things we want you to be prepared for. I know you and I have been talking about this for 5 years. So we really need to make sure, if you haven't started to look at taxes, you need to start thinking through how some of these changes coming up are going to impact you and your retirement. And that's a lot of what we're hearing anyway, is the markets calm down, but taxes are really starting to come back to the forefront.
Any word from the Fed right now on what they plan to do? Are they going to let it?
I missed Jay Powell's call yesterday, Bill.
Did you?
And I'm just kidding. You and I talk about this off air as much as we do on the air.
Right.
I really feel like that they have taken this want to gain some of their lost credibility back to the extreme. They have already, in my opinion, they have slayed the dragon. They have slayed the inflation dragon. So if they would just stop and let what has happened work its way through the market, they'll get their wish. What I'm afraid of, and it's a very small probability, but it's still out there, is if they continue down this path and they're just heck bent and determined that they're going to do and raise rates regardless, they could take a situation where we could avoid recession and turn it back into a possible recession. So the Fed is really the only thing, in my opinion, that could force us down that path. I just hope that they realize that in time and they don't end up doing it, maybe 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months down the road.
For sure. Anything advisory wise that you want to tell people to be aware of as we close this out, Travis?
One more time bears worth repeating. Taxes, folks. Taxes are optional. I know you don't believe that, but they are. If you have a good tax plan, it's much easier to plan your path than it is to just allow it to happen by default. If you don't go ahead and get aggressive planning for how taxes are going to impact your retirement, you're going to end up paying more. That's why you need to make sure that you're on the right track. You know how it's going to impact you and how you can sidestep some of these issues. And Bill, that's what we love to do with our clients, is show them how to avoid these unnecessary mistakes and errors that can really cause them harm in their retirement.
All right, sir. And as we wrap it up here, tell people how to get in touch with you. We're into shameless self-promotion.
No worries. Thank you very much. 877-269-0839 is our office line. And also, once again, we are starting our course offering for this coming next 3 months. So if they'd like to come and sit in and learn some of these ideas, learn some of these concepts, they can go to our website at chancefinancialgroup.com, go to our contact or events page, and learn when we're going to be in their area.
Outstanding. Travis, talk to you again next week. Thanks very much. Have a great weekend.
Have a good week.
Thanks. There you go.
Travis always gives us some good insight, and I think everyone's a little fiery at the moment. We're kind of sick of all the stuff going on, and financial is no different.
Yeah, and he's very level-headed about it, and he does a lot of research on this. Does a very good job, and of course, full disclosure that he is my wife's financial advisor. Meanwhile, coming up, we're going to be talking with Jay Ratliff on what's going on in the air. iHeart aviation analyst and expert. And there's another story about people being caught on a plane with the air conditioning out, or stuck on the tarmac. And this is a different airline this time, and you won't believe what they had to do to get a fat passenger out of a first class seat on a British Airways flight. All that's coming up with Jay next. Stay real.
When I grow up, I want to work for a woke company. Like super woke. When I grow up, I want to be hired based on what I look like rather than my skills.
I want to be judged by my political beliefs.
I want to get promoted
based on my chromosomes. When I grow up, I want to be offended by my coworkers
and walk around the office
on eggshells
and have my words policed
by HR. Words like
grandfather,
peanut gallery,
long time no see,
no can do.
When I grow up,
I want to be obsessed with emotional safety and do workplace sensitivity training all day long. When I grow up, I want to climb the corporate ladder
just by following the crowd.
I want to be a conformist. I want to weaponize my pronouns. What are pronouns?
It's time to grow up and get back to work. Introducing the #1 woke-free job board in America, redballoon.work.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes. Welcome back to Get Real America. Time to find out what's going on in the sky and on the ground of the people that take care of the folks who are in the sky. Our good buddy Jay Ratliff, iHeart aviation analyst and expert on the aviation stuff, an intrepid reporter on that all that jazz, is on the line here with us. Jay, what is the latest and greatest?
Well, we can talk about the Southwest Airlines flight that was delayed. It stranded passengers for more than 2 hours. This is coming on the heels of a situation we had similar in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, with Delta.
Delta flight. That was it. And the Department of Transportation looking into that. But in this particular situation, it was a Southwest Flight 2176 preparing to operate from Palm Springs. I think it was going to Denver, then Denver to Chicago, Midway, when thunderstorms rolled in, kind of delayed the departure. But the problem is the plane was on the tarmac for more than 2 hours. And that increased heat within the cabin caused the passengers to start passing out. They had to return to the gate. Medical teams were responding and going from there. The Delta flight, they had passengers on there for more than 4 hours as passengers and flight attendants were passing out. Of course, at the gate, we keep the window shades lowered, and they remain lowered until we are able to take off. And that's because the ground power unit that we connect at the gate can kind of help keep some of that air conditioning flowing a little, not a whole lot. But once that's disconnected, it then becomes the job of the engines, which are on idle to a little bit more as it's taxing out. So there's not a whole lot of airflow. So you're really wanting that silver revenue tube to get in the air so those engines can start churning some of that cooler air into the cabin. And when there's a delay in that departure, that's when things start to heat up and big time. And that's exactly what we had here.
Jay, you think that we somehow could figure out how to remedy that a little bit? I mean, when we sit in our cars, that air conditioner still runs. Why can't we do it on an airplane?
On a $200 million aircraft, you think they would have the capability of doing that?
Yes.
The problem is that it would cost a great deal of money to put systems on board that we would use while the aircraft is on the ground, disconnected from the ground power unit. And in the eyes of airline executives, it's, look, most of the time when you take off from the gate, you are within the air normally in a few minutes. And obviously it's Chicago, LaGuardia, some of these airports that are known for their long taxi times, that's a little bit different. But the idea of, let's say, if you have 30,000 flights in the course of a day, and this hot weather event affects 100, from a percentage standpoint, for them, that's simply not enough to spend that much money. So that's one of the reasons that we see it. Plus, they would quickly say, now, come on, Jay, this is some record heat. We don't see this all the time, blah, blah, blah. And we're not going to end up spending any more money. And, that's exactly the case. But it all comes down to the economics of the situation. And, if they only have a few people pass out a year, I guess they consider that acceptable.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I mean, it seems to me they can have one of these little portable jobby doos that could come out on a go-kart or something, and and plug into the plane while it's waiting, and then you wouldn't have to deplane or anything. So when that window comes open, they could decouple and off we go.
Would be, but then you'd have extra personnel in different positions, and then of course you have a safety concern with regards to you're outside the norm of where these airplanes normally operate. So I mean, there's a lot of things to consider. But the bottom line is that, airlines are going to be what they are, and they're cheap, and they're going to spend as little money as they can. And a lot of times when the National Transportation Safety Board investigates an accident or a near accident, what will take place is they'll put forth a series of recommendations after the investigation of, 8 or 10 months concludes. And they may give, the FAA 27 different action items. The problem is most of those cost money to make things safer. And airlines, they'll consider them, but unless they're forced to do it, they're not going to implement some of those things. Occasionally they are required, where aircraft manufacturers like Boeing and Airbus are ordered by date such and such have these safety things in place, much like we did with cars that require the backup camera by a certain date because that makes things safer as well.
Now, what's this situation where we had a passenger that got stuck in a first-class seat because they were a little, shall we say, a bit on the rotund side? Is that right?
They were a plus-sized passenger. That's how it's formally determined or described, because you have a lot of these people that call themselves plus-sized passengers that have been going to social media complaining about, look, these seats are getting smaller. People of our size, they say, have a very difficult time, and airlines are discriminating against us. Now, airlines are very quick to say, look, we're not discriminating, because if your size causes you to need a slightly bigger seat, guess what? We've got the option. It's called Economy Plus, which the seat is a little bit bigger. First Class, which the seat is much bigger. Yeah, you might have to pay a little bit more, but you'll be comfortable. Right. And when you have the thought process, the airlines sit back like, we've done our job. But in this particular case, it was a British Airways flight. The man was seated in this aircraft for 6.5 hours as it flew into London Gatwick, landed. But then he got stuck. He couldn't get out of his seat. Now, he's in a first-class seat. And he can't get up. He's stuck. Flight attendants are trying to help him. No success. And they figured the only way to get this guy out, Bill, was to bring a hoist onto the aircraft and lift him straight up. Yeah. The problem was they couldn't get it through the door of the aircraft.
I was just going to
So
say, yeah.
So they had to take the door off the aircraft.
Oh,
And
no.
in essence, it took 3 hours to get the hoist on there and the guy out of that seat. So you're talking about
wow,
6.5 hour flight plus 3 more hours in the seat to get this individual up. Now I'll tell you what will probably happen from British Airways' standpoint. Obviously, it's not their fault, but they will probably go to this man and say, in the future, given the current conditions, you can't fly British Airways. Because in the event that there had been an emergency situation where that aircraft landed, and flight attendants are responsible for getting everybody off that airplane in 90 seconds or less, that ain't happening. So as a result, it's not safe for that man to be in that situation if we did have an emergency situation occur. So yeah, it's but you know, certainly this was a story that British Airways tried to handle as tactfully as they could. They were asked repeatedly, why is this flight delayed? They've got to come up with a press release that indicates what's going on. And in this press release, they had to be as careful as they could. They worded it this way: the flight was delayed due to a volumetric passenger. Volumetric.
Volumetric.
Passenger.
I love it.
Also a stock term, but I guess now it can refer to plus size passengers.
Oh, gee. Next time, people take a little longer.
People think you and I make half stuff up, and I'm sure people are looking at us going, "Yeah, right. You two are at it again." No, we're not. It's on the internet. It has to be true.
You cannot make this stuff up, Jay. There's no doubt about it. And I would suggest, I know it's going to take a little longer, but I would suggest for him next time, Royal Caribbean.
Yeah, you can get there comfortably, a little slower, but you won't get stuck anywhere. So, I never want to make light of people that are heavier because I was never this bad to be stuck in the seat. But man, there was time I was 280 pounds and it wasn't coming off, and I had to drop 50 pounds to get back where I need to be because I couldn't ride rides at the amusement park with my granddaughter because I couldn't get the thing around me. And that's when I said, hey, it's time for me to change things up here because this isn't going to make it.
I'm fighting the battle of the bulge every day. And it's like a runaway freight train sometimes. Well, Jay, anything you want to add as we close it out here this time?
Let's see if there was anything today that was of any significance. I know that we had, let's see. We now have Los Angeles banning plastic bottles.
Oh, geez.
Yep, second airport in the world to do that. The other, of course, shockingly, San Francisco. Yeah, so the sale of any single-use bottled waters is stopping at LAX. So they said this is the best way for them to address the climate issue, blah, 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 too much plastic, which I thought we were
that's going to take care of it.
I guess. Yeah, but so our worries are over. The other story was United Airlines. They banned a woman because she was arguing over wine. She's on a flight from, yes, I paused for effect. The flight from Houston to Los Angeles was in flight, and this passenger gets into an argument over wine. And, you only have so much of a selection of wine on board an aircraft, but, so the flight attendants finally say, ma'am, we need to ask you to go sit down so we can, do our safety duties, right? And take care of other passengers. She wouldn't sit down. It got so bad, the captain decided, well, before they get to LA, to land that bad boy in Phoenix, and they kicked her off. And she'll probably face a fine from the Federal Aviation Administration, probably 10 grand easy. Probably, I hope, we'll get a bill from United Airlines for the fuel that was used. I hope that happens. And she's been banned from flying United for a period of time. So it's not a lifetime ban. They'll probably give her a few years to cool off. But I like it when they have penalties for people that act up on aircraft. And this especially, obviously if there's a physical altercation where this woman maybe had, let's say, hit the person over the head with a wine bottle, one of the flight attendants, they'd have been banned from flying United. But as you and I have discussed repeatedly, no other airline would have them banned. And when it gets physical, we need to see something a little bit more stringent in and filled with consequences than simply just being banned from one airline. It should be all.
Oh, wow. Amazing. Well, maybe it'll give that wine a little more chance to age for her this time.
There you go.
All right.
But that's all I got to unpack this morning, brother.
All right. Jay, enjoy your trip, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, pal. We'll be right back.
Have you ever boarded a plane and thought to yourself, I hope the pilot is a transgender refugee? Have you ever gone to the emergency room and said, I hope my medical team is incredibly diverse? Have you ever moved to a new city and said, I hope the police department hit its equity goals for the year? If your answer to these questions was no, if you just wanted the most qualified candidates for the job, then you are normal. But we have a lot of very not normal people running America these days. Left-wing politicians believe skin color or gender identity should determine who gets the job. Democrats used to care about the middle class. Now they just care about your race and your gender. And as long as Democrats stay in power, it will just keep getting worse. Stop the bigotry. Stop the insanity. Paid for by Citizens for Sanity.
Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah, we'll never be alone. Savannah, the beauty of the world. Savannah, let's all take a walk. Savannah, I'm coming home. Savannah.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Serving the Savannah area with the power of the Shield since 1934, with personal insurance, employee benefits, and business insurance, with integrity, security, and trust. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Come join us today at Sweet Potatoes Kitchen for some of that good Southern home cooking, like fried chicken, fish, and mouth-watering banana pudding. Say it's the best in the world, and you won't get an argument from me. Also, those vegetables are fresh and delicious. Voted Southside's best restaurant in Savannah at least 5 times, and large corporate parties are welcome. Tell them Bill Edwards sent you. Drop by and eat today. Everybody loves sweet potatoes.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard on this Thursday. So get ready for the weekend. By the way, next weekend here in Savannah is the gun and knife show.
Yes.
And you can come out there and meet us.
Yes, we will be there. So make sure you get out there. It's going to be at the Convention Center out by the Westin on Hutchinson Island. So come check us out. We'll be there from 10 in the morning. Well, actually Saturday, 9 until 5 is the gun show. And then on Sunday, it is 10 to 4. So make sure you go out and support. Also, it's a great time to go to the gun show. I mean, I don't know if you see what's happening out there, but
there's lots to do. There's lots to see. Bring the kids. They got a lot of stuff for the kids to do, and they can take a look at some of the things to do that will protect you and your family. One of the things that we talk about with Republicans is when are they going to grow a spine? I'm tired of waiting on the Wuhan lab to come up with that, or Dr. Fauci. So we're having, and Matt Gaetz is one of the few who stands up and says, we have to start street fighting. We reelect these people or elect these people every time through these cycles who promise that they are going to stand up for us, and then all of a sudden they start acquiescing and going along with the Democratans because they're afraid of the Democratans and the media. But I repeat myself.
And, I do think that when it comes to this stuff with Trump, I don't care if you're a Trump person, not a Trump person, it's wrong. And what they've done is wrong. When you've been investigated for, 8 years now, and this is the best you come up with, and it's garbage, and you're still going to take it, waste the taxpayer money, and also just keep going. It's ridiculous.
From Jackass Smith when he was saying that press conference day before yesterday and had the unmitigated gall to say, we hope this will get a speedy trial. Oh, really? You're charging him with something from 2.5 years ago? That's not exactly what we call a speedy trial.
It's just convenient that the timing of everything. It's just very convenient.
Unbelievable.
Yes. And Steve Statton says, yes, Matt is a champion. He sure is. One of my favorites. I do think that he's the only one that is willing to go out on a limb and take a bashing from the media, if you will.
Jim Jordan ain't bad either.
He's not as public, I would say, as Matt Gaetz is. But
let's see what Matt has to say on fighting back.
Can you imagine the conversation they had when they were like, just get out of the White House?
Yeah, let's hope that Joe Biden doesn't find his way onto a bicycle anywhere. The question isn't what Joe Biden's doing. We already have observed that. The real question is, what will House Republicans do? And Carl, I want to discuss that. First, House Republicans should immediately demand that Jack Smith present himself for a transcribed interview before the Judiciary Committee in the next 15 days. If he does not do that, we should send a subpoena. If he ignores the subpoena, we should hold him in criminal contempt of the Congress so that he is the first prosecutor in American history to be prosecuting a case while himself under criminal contempt. And if Merrick Garland doesn't enforce that criminal contempt, then we ought to impeach Merrick Garland. And by the way, while we're doing all of that to showcase how political and indeed dirty this has all become, we can utilize congressional immunities to immunize President Trump. 18 USC 6002 subpart 3 gives any committee or subcommittee of the Congress the ability to subpoena a witness, bring them in, and functionally immunize them. And if we are not going to stand up for Congress's equities when it comes to election interference, when it comes to misuse of the DOJ, this is all an effort to try to distract us from the very real crimes committed by Hunter and Joe Biden. It's not a coincidence that Joe Biden is going to the beach now, but it is especially not a coincidence that on the heels of their former business partner, Devin Archer, saying that Joe Biden was functionally the closer, the guy that gave the credibility to the Biden brand for them to engage in international influence peddling, that just on the heels of that, now this indictment reads like a torturing of First Amendment protected activity. If you don't like the way they run elections, if you want a better way, if you want to offer a constitutionally contemplated objection, they want to make a criminal of you. That's a dangerous thing for the country. And if the House Judiciary Committee and House Republicans won't stand up for our republic, then what is the point of having us there anyway? I know.
Carl Higbee, Frontline on Newsmax.
Yes, and Matt Gaetz there saying basically we have options. It's just that the Republicans need to step up and do it. Lizzie Warren brought up a good point. Gaetz was also the victim of false criminal allegations. He knows how to fight back on that kind of fraud. Most Republicans would have stepped down with those allegations. And he's like, I'm innocent. I'm not going anywhere.
Exactly.
And he fought back. And guess what? He won. And turns out they were trying to frame him because guess what? He's an issue for them. He's bringing up things that they don't want brought up, and he is going out to the public, and he's very vocal. They don't like people like that, especially on the Republican side.
They breathe a little cold wind onto a Republican, and suddenly all the Republicans say, oh no, we need to get rid of this guy. And we do that to the Democrats, and it's circle the wagon time and say, how dare you say this? That this is just Republican talking points, so on and so forth. It's unbelievable.
Well, and Bill, we talk about this all the time, but it's people were like, Kevin McCarthy, he's going to be fine, and I'm grateful for how the 20 held their own. But at the end of the day, Kevin McCarthy is still establishment. He's still not going to do the right thing because he's used to being able to play the game, and we've allowed these Republicans to behave that way. And guess what? They're not super upset about things, which I don't understand. They come and try to placate to the cameras, but in reality, they're not doing anything that they should be doing. And if this was the Democrats, they would be coming for blood.
Yeah, they'd be called they call the Republicans all sorts of names in these committees, and the Republicans don't fight back about that. They need to start firing back. I'd like to see some of the witnesses sometimes that they bring forth, especially the trans kids that have come back and said, this has been a disaster in my life, and I'll never be the same. I'll never get over it. They need to start, talking directly to the Democrats and saying, this is your fault. And you're not doing anything about that, and you don't care. And you're doing this for political purposes, and knock it off. You ought to be out of office immediately, if not sooner.
Well, and Steve Stanton says, that's why we love Trump so he punches back. So my question for our audience is who are you voting for, and are you a Trump or bust voter? Because I do think that that's interesting that there is a dynamic. I believe it's 30% of people that will only vote for Trump. Also, I'm hearing rumors that say, people that if they take Trump off the ballot and there's no way for him to run for election, which we'll see what happens. This is going to be a circus for the next year and a half. But Vivek, I think that he has really become the secondary front runner because he just speaks so plainly, so boldly. And if he was being advised by a Republican consultant, because they're a bunch of weasels, he would be being told, don't say that. Don't say these things. It's going to hurt your campaign. When really, it hasn't hurt him at all.
No, it's like when the State Department kept trying to tell President Reagan, don't tear down this, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. No, don't say that in your speech, okay? So, but it's interesting that the Democrats keep voting, or the Black America keeps voting for Democrats in record numbers. And why they don't see the light, I have no idea. But there was a movie out just back, how long ago was this?
This was 1998 when Bulwark came out. Yes.
Yeah. And the movie Bulwark, and they nailed it.
Bring about a rebirth of democracy. Any questions?
Nice.
Good evening. Yes.
Less is more.
When the riots and civil unrest went down about 4 years ago, you promised us federal funding to rebuild our community. What happened?
Well, what happened was that we all knew that was going to be big news for a while, so we all came down here, Bush, Clinton, Wilson, all of us. We got our pictures taken, told you what you wanted to hear, and we pretty much forgot about it.
Did he just say what I think he said?
Let's see where he's going with this.
Down here, we can't get health insurance, fire insurance, life insurance. Why haven't you come out for Senate Bill 2720?
Well, because you haven't really contributed any money to my campaign, have you? You got any idea how much these insurance companies come up with? They pretty much depend on me to get a bill like that and bottle it up in my committee during an election, and in that way, we can kill it when you're not looking.
Fred, when you say buy the book, what book would that be?
Are you saying the Democratic Party don't care about the African-American community?
Isn't that obvious? Hey, you got half of your kids out of work and the other half are in jail. Do you see any Democrat doing anything about it? Certainly not me. So what are you going to do, vote Republican? Come on, you're not going to vote Republican. Let's call a spade a spade. I mean, come on, you can have a billion-man march. If you don't put down that malt liquor and chicken wings and get behind somebody other than a running back who stabs his wife, you're never going to get rid of somebody like me.
Wonder why we haven't seen that.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry.
Bulwark.
Yes, we just wanted to leave you with a little bit of a laugh because I'm sorry, it's so obvious to all of us that really are paying attention. So just kind of a fun way to end the show on a Thursday.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Yes.
Stay real. See you Monday. Have a good weekend.
Thanks so much. Remember to download our app, and we'll see you guys next week.